We're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 5 this evening. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 is a little different than the first four chapters. It's not quite so down in the dumps about everything. He's a little more encouraging about things that we need to be doing and should be doing. And he starts off in chapter 1 and says, walk prudently when you go to the house of God, and draw near to hear rather than give the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know that they do evil. This is something that I fear sometimes we are here physically, sometimes we are not here mentally, spiritually. My dad, when we were growing up, he always insisted and never failed to remind us, you start preparing for Sunday worship on Saturday. You can't play and do everything that you do and go on with your life, stay out late on Saturday night, don't get much sleep, drag in on Sunday morning, find you a spot in the pew, and you're just kind of, we call warming a pew. His point to us was, you start getting ready to worship God before you walk through the door. There was no, for a long time there was no television, but even after there was television, there was no television at our house on Sunday mornings for worship service. There was no car radio on the car as we were driving back to worship service. We were talking about our lesson. Dad was big on memory verses. And so we were getting ready for worship service long before 9 o'clock Sunday morning. And it taught us a valuable lesson. And I think that's what Solomon is doing here when he says, walk prudently. Don't just stroll in, and some people call it play church for a couple hours. And when you're sitting there, you're deciding, what are we going to eat for lunch? Or is the ball game going to start before I get home? We need to keep in mind that when we come to worship service, God is communicating with us. He's communicating through song, through prayers, through a sermon, through Bible classes. And so we need to be at our best. We need to come in here ready to truly worship God. What do you think he means to hear rather than give the sacrifice of fools? For they do not know that they do evil. What does that mean? What's the sacrifice of fools? And I think it was mentioned earlier, one of the chapters. What do you think the sacrifice of fools is?
Something it could be is the fact that they so far away from God in their everyday life that God was totally rejected for sacrifices because they're it's going here to God, it's going here to here, rather than to give sacrifices. I'm gonna be first, then for a bunch of sacrifice.
I do think you're getting close to what I understand it to mean. Sacrifice of fools that I read about was so many words. People that are trying to put on a show of worshiping God when they really don't know how to worship God. And so I think even Wilson talks about it that too many words, announcements, way too long, prayers, way too long, sometimes sermons, way too long. When I was just a kid, and I can't remember the fellow's name, but we knew when he was called on to lead a prayer, we were going to be there for a while. And a lot of things he prayed in a public prayer would have been best left for a private, personal prayer. And I can't remember his name, but I'm talking about several minutes. And you would have older people sit down because they were tired of standing. And I can't, you might remember, I don't know, but anyway. So, but we're not here. I think Wilson hit it on the head when he said that the sacrifice of fools is just so many unnecessary words, so much unnecessary talking. When we are quiet, we're supposed to be listening, supposed to be meditating, and we need to be making sure that we're not playing church. And we do, and we need to be teaching our kids and our youngsters that we're supposed to be here to worship and to reverence God. And we're supposed to be here to make sure that that we are getting what we can out of the worship service. Someone said one time that you only get into something what you put into it. You'd only get out of something what you put into it. So we need try to get as much out of a worship service as we can. And we don't start getting ready for worship service when we pull in the parking lot. We need to start getting ready for worship service long before then. And So when he says, uh, walk prudently, go to worship, worship him sincerely, worship him reverently, and uh, we will reap the benefit. Anybody? Okay. Do not be rash with your mouth, and let not your heart utter anything hastily before God. For God is in heaven, and you are on earth. And again, I think he's talking about too many words, too much talking, not enough listening, not enough meditating. And the point he makes here that and not even let your heart, which is not anything that you're going to say out loud in most cases, but you make a rash promise. Uh, God hears it. And so we need to make sure that we are not uttering anything hastily before God. And he makes a point that God is in heaven and you are on earth, and there's an infinity between us and God. It's just, and sort of goes back to his point of life under the sun and life above the sun. Okay. Verse 3, for a dream comes through much activity, and a fool's voice is known by his many words. Any ideas what he's talking about? For a dream comes through much activity. I think he's talking, if you've had a really busy, stressful day, sometimes it's hard to get to sleep. Sometimes it's hard, if you get to sleep, not to dream crazy dreams. And we've all done it, I'm sure. But he's trying to get a point that he's going back to the people that have a lot of money, a lot of wealth. There's a lot more stress on those people than there is people that just work and labor for a living. Said a fool's voice is known by his many words. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you have vowed. It is better not to vow than not to pay. There is absolutely nothing wrong if you do not make a promise, especially if you don't make a promise that you're not sure you can keep. So when we make a vow to God, whether it's going to be that I'm going to pray more, I'm going to study my Bible more, I'm going to spend more time with my family, going to spend more time with my children, I'm going to spend less time at work. When we make those kind of vows, when we make those kind of promises, God does not take them lightly. And we should not make those promises lightly or take them lightly. We need to make sure that we do what we say we're going to do, what we're going to resolve to do. All right?
An example, one, you have an example of that in the New Testament. Ananias and Sapphira. What happened to them?
They didn't keep their vows. They were carried out feet first. We also have, I think it's James. He's James 5. And he says, let your yes be yes and let your no be no. You don't have to vow. How many times are we going to go back on our yes or our no before our word is no longer good? People are no longer going to trust that we're going to follow through with what we say. And that should not be any instance with a Christian. And James tells it. But if you say you're going to do something, do it. If you deny something, don't do it. Okay? Do not let your mouth, in verse 6, cause your flesh to sin, nor say before the messenger of God, it was an error. Why should God be angry at your excuse and destroy the work of your hands? I read the messenger of God that one of the commentaries I was looking at said that God has messengers, angels, whatever, it was his thought. I'm not sure about this. That keep a record of our promises. And he knows when we go back on our word. And we will have to answer for that eventually. All right? What does it mean? But do not let your mouth cause your flesh to sin. Anybody have any thoughts on that? He said that his verses that, number one, too many words, you get caught up, you don't live up to what you're saying. But the other thing is that you talk, and there comes a point where you don't really know how to worship God, don't really know how to fulfill what we need to do to be a spiritual worshiper of God, and we just use talking. We just keep talking, keep praying, and eventually you get to the point where you don't know what you're doing. And one of the commentaries I read said that this is what that sin is about. You don't really know how to worship God. You don't really know how to fulfill what you said. In verses 8 and 9, he changes gears a little bit. He says, "Do not shut your mouth." Oh, that's verse 6. "If you see the oppression of the poor and the violent perversion of justice and righteousness in a province, do not marvel at the matter, for high official watches over high official, and higher official watches over them." It's government, right? It's it's the oppression of the poor by the rich, because who usually ends up in positions of authority and government? Is it the poor guy? Pardon? Ones with money. The poor guy rarely ends up in a position of authority. It's people with money. And who watches over them? The people with more money. And it's just and Wilson makes the point, government, when it works, is a good thing, but a lot of time government doesn't work the way it's supposed to. So we need to be mindful. I was talking to Nathan last night, and he was Nathan was a pretty staunch Trump supporter, and he said, Granddad, he said, Trump's just an international bully, isn't he? And I said, well, yeah, probably, but nobody's watching over him. He's got nobody watching over him. Verse 10 says, "He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance with increase. This is vanity." Is anything wrong with money?
Not in and of itself. People are never satisfied with it.
It is okay to have money. We all need to have money to live, to care for our families, care for ourselves, pay our bills. But when it comes to the point that we are willing to sacrifice family, God, anything like that, to get more money, we've got our priorities wrong. And that's where you can lose your soul over it, because you're putting that over God in a lot of cases. We've all seen people that have money and nice house, nice car, but it's just not enough. House is not big enough. Car's not fancy enough. Nothing is enough when you have money if you just can't get enough money. Because a lot of that is not just the money, it's power, it's prestige. If people think that it's, well, if I can get to this point in life, then I'll be great. I remember my first job out of college. I made, it was about, date myself, about $8,000 a year. And when I got a raise and started making $10,000 a year, I just thought, man, Regina and I are in great shape. Well, things didn't change much. Then all of a sudden I got another raise and I made $1,000 a month. All I had was more bills to pay. So, not that I was trying to get money, but it just seems like that no matter where you are, even at that stage in life, it was something to have and to get to take care of my family. But it seemed like no matter what you got, it was it was never enough. But anyway, we need to be extremely cautious about money and stuff. And we need to make sure as we go on in life, sure, it's okay to make more money. It's okay, but that cannot be your focus. That cannot be your priority. That cannot be what you're most focused on. And Solomon figured that out. Solomon had all the money anybody could want. He had he had whatever anybody could want. But he found out that all of that without God was frivolous, was vanity. Sometimes wanting more and more leads to other sins. Leads to selfishness. It leads to questionable ways of getting more money. And it also leads to neglect of our responsibilities like our family and our spiritual growth. In verses 11 and 12, he talks about when our goods increase. What happens if you have more stuff? It takes more time and more effort to take care of it. Especially if you're back then with someone that had a lot of property, servants, herds, flocks, whatever. It just took a lot more servants and people to take care of it. It just required more management. It took more time to manage it. But I think back when I was in college, they called it in economics the point of diminishing returns. You get more, but it takes so much more to manage it that you end up with less. Now, with increased wealth comes more worry. With increased wealth comes more sleepless nights. And he talks about the rich guy. He may have had a full stomach, but he didn't get to sleep much. He was worrying all the time. On the other hand, the guy that had worked hard all day with his hands probably was going to sleep pretty well, whether he had a big supper or a small supper. That physical labor is good for you. In verses 13 and 15, it says that riches kept or hoarded are usually done to their hurt or to their detriment. Riches gained can be lost just as quickly, if not quicker, than they were gained. And if you've had a situation where people have made money and they have lost it a lot quicker than they gained it with bad investments, with bad luck. But someone who is accustomed to, I guess it's it's more hurtful if you've had it and lost it. If you've had if you brought up in a well-off, well-to-do family and had servants and such like, you're going to be more hurt if you lose that than you are as someone that's never had it. There's a lot of cases that Solomon talks about. It's better, this is one of them. Sometimes it's better not to have had something than to have had it and lost it. It's like the oath or the vows. Sometimes it's better not to make a vow than it is to make a vow and not keep it. Solomon just reminds us that as we were born, when we die, we will take nothing with us. I was thinking briefly yesterday, so much of what Solomon says in Ecclesiastes is think of Jesus, our Lord. Did he have anything physical? He didn't even have a place to lay his head that he could call his own. We need to take that as an example for us, that we don't have to have a lot of stuff and a lot of money in order to be happy on this earth, in order to be content on this earth. In verse 16, I kind of like the way that Wilson says about stuff or things. He calls them toys. I have a neighbor across the street from us, a young couple. That guy's got more toys than I can imagine. And every time I see him with his motorcycle or his camper or his saltwater pool or whatever he has, I think of saw a sign one time, and some of you have probably seen it. The only difference in men and little boys is the price of their toys. And that's what I think of when I think of this guy. Solomon reminds us that no matter how much stuff you have, or how little stuff you have, that when we die, it all stays here. Not any of it going to be taken with us. And he's just confirming that an unfulfilling life is a life without God, and a life that is God is our center and God is our basis, is the most comforting life we can have here on this earth. It's not the stuff, it's not the money, it's not the position, it's the comfort and the contentment that everyone can have with God as our anchor. Anybody have any questions? Turn over to page 29 and let's go through these questions. Number one, guard your steps as you go to the house of God. Solomon observed that worship can easily become trite and stale, rut and routine. The same can happen today. Discuss these three common attitudes about worship. Number one, going through the motions. And it can start at an early age, can it? Especially as somebody that's been brought up in the church. You can say, I cannot remember not going to worship services. I don't remember when we didn't go. We always went. And I think I've commented that sometimes we went when I didn't really want to go. I'd a whole lot rather been out playing or doing something. But just going through the motions is probably, you're not mentally prepared for worship. You you have to sometimes, if we go through the motions, we do a lot of things the same in our worship service. Now we have to balance doing things decently and in order, but we also have to balance keeping things where, especially our young people, can stay interested. So it's a balance. We have to do that. What about I don't think this is a problem here or even much in the South. Social event to be seen or heard. I don't see that being a problem in many places, especially in the Church of Christ. I don't think that that's a something we had to really be concerned with. But the next one, do your children think it's something we have to do? I did when I was a kid, but I also knew that I didn't have a choice. I had to, we were going to worship service, we were going to Bible study. So when we are, says guard your steps, make sure that these three things and maybe more don't interfere with our worshiping God. They don't interfere with our service to God. They don't interfere with Him communicating with us during worship service. And it also don't interfere with us edifying one another during our worship service. How have you taught your children to prepare for worship? I tried to do a lot of what my dad did with us, with our children. You try to limit some of the stuff on their plate on Saturday so that it doesn't interfere with getting ready for Bible study, worship service on Sunday. Anybody else here have anything that they do with their kids? Words are important in worship. Preachers use words to deliver God's message. Prayers are words of the heart uttered to heaven. We edify one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. However, silent reverence is important too. How do we find a balance? I think that we sing and pray reverently, keeping in mind that to God, that we're singing and praying to God, and we do it in a spiritual and reverent manner. Whether it's a commitment to pay back $50 or to faithfulness in marriage, sticking with your promise seems scarce these days. Not so in God's eyes. What is Solomon's conclusion in verses 4 and 5? I think it's basically keep your promises, pay what you owe, and don't make promises that you can't keep. All right? Anybody have any questions or comments? All right. Thank you. We'll pick up on the next lesson next week. Who's got the invitation? You? Okay.
Let me know when you think everybody's in here. Think they are? Okay.
Some group takes me number 294.
Since we've been discussing wisdom and knowledge in our study in here, I decided to have a study upon that issue, upon that this evening for the devotion. I'll start out with, when you're talking about wisdom, it has a wide variety of meaning, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. It can range from divine wisdom God gave Solomon all the way down to everyday man being able to apply scriptures to his everyday life. So there's a wide stretch of wisdom, what wisdom can mean. And I like to start after this. I like to say, I like to read from Proverbs 1, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but the fools despise wisdom and instruction. And jump down to Job 28, verse 28. And when you study book of Job, you got to be very careful when you quote from it, because you got Job speaking God's wisdom, knowledge, and you got three friends preaching and teaching false teachings. You got to make sure you don't get those two messages, those messages confused with each other. Job 28 says, and to man he said, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. And to depart from evil is understanding. So what do we see? Beginning of knowledge of God, the fear of God is the beginning of knowledge, and knowledge is the beginning of wisdom. When we try to think about today, how many of us has the wisdom of God? Think about this range: divine wisdom from God and how to apply God's scriptures to your life. Does everyone here have that type of knowledge to be able to apply God's word to our everyday life? Hopefully we do. And I don't think there is anybody here that doesn't have it. Anyway, let's continue on. When we think about the lower level of wisdom, I think a lot of times is what people refer to as common sense today. He doesn't even have enough common sense to screw a light bulb in. What is he saying? He's lacking. He's lacking wisdom. He don't know how to do it. He's lacking wisdom on how to do it. And let's take a look at Galatians chapter 5, verse 16. And I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. These are contrary to one another, so that you do not do the things that you wish. What do we say here? Walk in the Spirit. That's knowledge, isn't it? And you shall not fulfill the lust of the Spirit, lust for the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. This is knowledge, isn't it? But what does it mean? Verse 18. If you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. For the works of the flesh are evident. I could read it all the way through it, but I'm not going to take time to it tonight. We've heard it probably hundreds of times. If you are led by the Spirit, you will have the wisdom not to walk according to the desires of the flesh, won't you? And when we stop and think about the Old Testament, stop about living in the flesh, you need to stop and think. It is in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 3, or actually verse 4, for it is not possible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. Old Testament law could not take away sins. It just told you what sin was. You had to obey it. Because there's no way for Old Testament law to forgive you your sins. But the fruit of the Spirit, knowledge, how do we apply it? Through love, joy, peace, long suffering, kindness and goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. We are to live by the fruit of the Spirit. And how do we do that? By having love, joy, those things in our lives, in our lifestyle. Verse 25 also says basically the same thing. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another. And we're going to go to 1 John chapter 2, verse 3. By this we know that we know him if we keep his commandments. Are we willing? Do we truly know Jesus? Do we really know him and enough to apply his words to our life so that we will keep his commandments? Verse 4, he who does not know him, Jesus, does not keep his commandments, and he is a liar, and the truth is not in him. There's a person who has knowledge, but he does not have wisdom because he does not know how to apply it to his life. And what I'm going to close with this next thought. Acts chapter 22, verse 16. Now, why are you waiting? Arise and be baptized and wash away your sins, calling on the name of the Lord. Here is a command. Do we have the knowledge and the love and the wisdom to fulfill this command? He says, arise and be baptized. Do you know God? Do you know Jesus? Are you willing to obey what he says? Arise, be baptized, and wash away your sins, calling on the name of the Lord. And like I said, this is our thought. This is where I'm going to end it. I think it's a good spot. Do we have the wisdom of God in our lives? Do we have God's knowledge and his wisdom? Are we willing to apply the wisdom of God into our lives and be willing to obey him? Let's sing hymn 294 this time.
Jesus is tenderly calling thee home, calling today, calling today. I from the sunshine of love will come, farther and farther away. Calling today, calling today. Jesus is calling, it's tenderly calling today. Jesus is calling the weary to rest, calling today, calling today. Bring him thy burden and thou shalt be blessed, even thy turning away. Calling today, calling today. Jesus is calling, is tenderly calling today. Jesus is pleading, oh, listen to his voice. Hear him today, hear him today. They who believe on his name shall rejoice, when we arise away. Calling today, calling today. Jesus is calling, is tenderly calling today.
Bill, in just a moment, will you lead our closing prayer for us? So, a couple of announcements, we have the walls painted in the back and they've got that taken care of. They replaced the carpet. in the lobby area. I think maybe there's still a spot to be cleaned in this main auditorium, but glad to have that taken care of. And I know you are. Appreciate all the work Ronnie's been involved in doing that. Mike Johnson is not here. Was he here Sunday? Okay. Mike does not appear to me that he's feeling very well yet. So be sure and keep him in your prayers. I know it's a slow recovery. Jill also has been in the hospital this week, back home, just keep Jill in your prayers. It's a very challenging, difficult time, but there was not anything they could really do to help this. These seizures apparently are part of her disease. Anyone else got an announcement tonight? We're glad to be back. A little more tired than we were when we left, but we're getting there. Been a great week, and we're really thrilled to be able to be here. Joe, would you lead us?